The stars looked beautiful from the observation window of the small human ship called the Starward Bound. Commander Jake Morrison stood there, drinking his morning coffee, thinking about how peaceful everything seemed. His crew of 42 men and women had been exploring this part of space for 6 months now. They had found new planets, collected samples, and sent reports back to Earth. It was good work, quiet work. That piece ended in exactly 3 minutes. The alarms started screaming all at once. Red lights flashed across every corridor of the ship. Jake dropped his coffee and ran to the bridge, his boots hitting the metal floor hard with each step. "What do we have?" he shouted as he burst through the door. Lieutenant Amy Cross was already at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Her face was pale, and Jake felt his stomach drop when he saw her expression. "6 ships, Commander. Big ones. They came out of hyperspace right on top of us." She looked up at him with fear in her eyes. "They're Volanthi." The word hung in the air like poison. Everyone on the bridge stopped moving. Everyone knew what that name meant. The Volanthi Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their warriors were legends, standing 8 feet tall, with blue skin that shimmered like water under light. They had 4 arms, each one strong enough to crush a human skull. Their reflexes were so fast that human eyes could barely follow their movements. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, and they did not like visitors in their space. "On screen," Jake ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The main display flickered, and then he saw them. 6 warships, each one the size of a small city, arranged in a perfect circle around his tiny vessel. The Starward Bound looked like a mouse surrounded by wolves. "They're hailing us," Amy said quietly. Jake straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put it through." The screen changed again, and Jake found himself looking at the most beautiful and terrifying creature he had ever seen. Princess Alindra Valkorath sat on a throne made of something that looked like black glass. Her skin was the same shimmering blue as her warriors, but lighter, like the sky on a summer morning. Her eyes were silver, bright and cold like stars. She had long white hair that floated around her shoulders as if she were underwater. She was tall and elegant, and she looked at Jake the way a cat might look at a bug. "Human vessel," she said. Her voice was smooth and clear through the translator. "You have entered Volanthi space without permission. This is a crime, punishable by death." Jake swallowed hard. "Your Highness, we meant no offense. We are explorers only. We did not know these borders." Silence. The word cut through his explanation like a knife. "I do not care about your excuses. I care only about what happens next." She stood from her throne and walked closer to the camera. Behind her, Jake could see rows of Volanthi warriors standing at attention. One of them was larger than all the others, a mountain of muscle and armor with scars covering his face. "I am Princess Alindra Valkorath, 3rd daughter of Emperor Korath the Mighty, and I am bored." She smiled, showing teeth that were just a little too sharp. "So I will offer you a choice, little humans." Jake waited, his heart pounding. "My champion is called Torvok. He has won 217 arena battles. He has never lost." She gestured to the giant warrior behind her. "One of your people will fight him in single combat. If your fighter wins, I will become your prisoner. I will order my ships to leave, and the blockade around your outer colonies will end. Your people will have safe passage through this sector." Jake felt hope rise in his chest, but the princess was not finished. "If your fighter loses, Earth will surrender its outer colonies to the Empire. You will become a subject species, and your people will serve Volanthi masters." The bridge was completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "You cannot be serious," he said finally. "One fight to decide the fate of billions?" Princess Alindra laughed. It was a cold sound, like wind through ice. I am very serious, human. This is how my people have settled disputes for thousands of years. It is fair, it is simple, and it will be entertaining. And if we refuse? Her silver eyes narrowed. Then I will destroy your ship, kill everyone aboard, and my father will conquer your colonies anyway. At least, this way, you have a chance. She tilted her head, studying him, however small that chance might be. Jake turned to look at his crew. He saw fear on every face, but he also saw something else. He saw determination. He saw the stubborn human spirit that had carried their species from caves to the stars. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "1 hour. Choose your champion wisely, Commander." The princess smiled again. "I look forward to watching them die." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then everyone started talking at once. Some wanted to run. Others wanted to fight with weapons instead of fists. A few suggested trying to negotiate different terms. Jake raised his hand for silence. "Enough. We all know we can't run. Their ships are faster than ours. We can't fight them with weapons either. They would destroy us in seconds. Does anyone have any other ideas?" The silence stretched on and on. Finally, a voice came from the back of the room. "I'll do it." Everyone turned to look. Specialist Cole Bennett stepped forward. He was not a big man. At 5 feet and 10 inches, with a thin build and a plain face, he looked more like a clerk than a soldier. He had brown hair, brown eyes, and the kind of quiet confidence that most people never noticed. "Cole, no," Amy said immediately. "Did you see the size of that thing? It will tear you apart." Cole shrugged. "Maybe, but what choice do we have? Someone has to try." He looked at Jake with steady eyes. "I've spent my whole life training for fights I probably couldn't win. This is just one more." Jake studied the young specialist. He knew Cole's history. Before joining the space program, Cole had been a fighter, a combat instructor, and a member of special operations. He had grown up in the mountains of Montana, where survival was not guaranteed. He was tough in ways that didn't show on the outside. "You understand what you're volunteering for?" Jake asked quietly. Cole nodded. "Yes, sir. But I also understand what happens if nobody volunteers. So let me do this. Let me try." Jake looked at his crew one more time. He saw no better options, only fear and hope mixed together. "All right," he said finally. "God help us all." Cole smiled, just a little. "With all respect, Commander, God helps those who help themselves, and I plan to help myself to a victory." He turned and walked off the bridge to prepare, leaving everyone else wondering if they had just sent a man to his death or to glory. Only time would tell. Cole Bennett sat alone in his small room, checking his equipment for the 3rd time. He did not have much. A standard military knife with a 7-inch blade. His combat boots. Simple black clothing that would not restrict his movement. That was all. On the table in front of him lay a small photograph. It showed a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, standing in front of a wooden house with mountains in the background. His mother. She had died 2 years ago, but Cole still carried her picture everywhere. "Well, Mom," he said quietly, "I always told you I'd do something important with my life. I guess this counts." A knock came at the door. Cole put the photograph in his pocket and stood up. "Come in." Lieutenant Amy Cross stepped inside. She looked tired and worried, with dark circles under her eyes. She had not slept since the princess delivered her challenge. "The shuttle is ready," she said. "They're sending a transport to take you to their arena ship." Cole nodded and picked up his knife. "Good. The waiting is always the worst part." Amy did not move from the doorway. She just stood there, looking at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. "And don't give me that speech about duty and sacrifice. I want the real reason. Cole thought about the question for a moment. He had asked himself the same thing 100 times in the past hour. When I was a kid, he began slowly, my father used to take me hunting in the mountains. There was this one winter, I was maybe 12 years old, when we got caught in a blizzard. We were lost, freezing, and my dad broke his leg falling down a slope. He paused, remembering. Everyone would have said we were dead. No one could survive that. But I dragged him 7 miles through the snow to a ranger station. Took me 14 hours. How is that possible? Cole smiled slightly. Because I refused to believe it was impossible. That's what humans do, ain't he? We look at impossible situations and we find a way through them anyway. It's not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being too stubborn to quit. He walked past her into the corridor, and she followed. But this is different, she insisted. This isn't a blizzard. This is a warrior who has killed hundreds of people in combat. He's bigger, stronger, and faster than you. Yes, Cole agreed simply. He is. So how can you possibly win? Cole stopped walking and turned to face her. I don't know yet, but I have one advantage that he doesn't. What's that? He's never fought a human before. He doesn't know what we're capable of. He thinks this will be easy. Cole's eyes were calm and steady. That's usually when people lose. They reached the shuttle bay, where Commander Jake Morrison and several other crew members were waiting. The atmosphere was heavy with tension and unspoken fear. Nobody knew what to say. Jake stepped forward and held out his hand. Cole shook it firmly. Whatever happens out there, Jake said, know that you're the bravest person I've ever met. We're all proud of you. Cole nodded. Just make sure you watch carefully. If I win, I want witnesses. That got a few nervous laughs from the crowd. The shuttle doors opened, revealing a Valanthi transport ship waiting outside. It was sleek and silver, shaped like a blade, and it dwarfed the human shuttle completely. 2 Valanthi guards stood at the entrance, their forearms folded across their massive chests. Cole took a deep breath and walked toward them. The journey to the arena ship took 20 minutes. Cole spent the time studying the guards, watching how they moved, how they balanced their weight, how their joints bent. He noticed that their elbows and knees worked the same way human joints did. That was useful information. When the transport docked, the guards led him through corridors filled with Valanthi spectators. They pointed at him and laughed, making gestures that probably meant something insulting. Cole ignored them. He had been underestimated his whole life. It never bothered him anymore. Finally they reached a large chamber, decorated with banners and weapons. In the center stood Princess Elindra, wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid silver. She looked even more impressive in person than she had on the screen. So, she said, walking a slow circle around him, you are smaller than I expected. Cole replied calmly, I get that a lot. The princess stopped in front of him, her silver eyes examining every inch of his body. You carry no weapon except that tiny blade. You wear no armor. Do you not understand what you are facing? I understand perfectly. Then you are either very brave or very foolish. She leaned closer, her face just inches from his. Which is it? Cole met her gaze without flinching. I guess we'll find out. Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or interest. She was not used to creatures that did not tremble before her. I have watched many beings walk to their deaths in my arena, she said quietly. Most of them cry, some of them beg, a few of them try to run. But you, she tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. You are not afraid. I didn't say that, Cole answered. I'm terrified. But fear doesn't change what needs to be done. The princess stared at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back and gestured to her guards. Take him to the arena. Torvok is waiting. As the guards led him away, Cole heard her voice one more time. Human. He turned. Princess Alindra stood with her arms folded, her expression unreadable. When Torvok kills you, I will remember your courage. You have earned that much. Cole gave her a small nod. And when I defeat your champion, I'll try not to be too smug about it. No promises, though. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving the princess standing there with the strangest expression on her face. In 3,000 years, no one had ever spoken to her like that. She found herself looking forward to the fight more than she had expected. The arena was enormous. It was a circular space surrounded by thousands of seats, all filled with Volanthi spectators cheering and chanting. The floor was made of some kind of hard sand, designed to absorb blood. Giant screens floated in the air, showing close-up images of everything that happened below. Cole walked into the arena and felt the noise wash over him like a wave. The crowd was screaming for his death, hungry for violence. He had never felt so small in his entire life. Then Torvak entered from the other side. The champion was even more massive than Cole had imagined. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, with muscles that seemed to have their own muscles. His blue skin was covered in scars from countless battles. In one of his 4 hands, he carried an energy blade that crackled with lightning. In another, he held a shield. His remaining 2 hands were empty, but they were large enough to crush a human head like a grape. The crowd went wild when they saw their champion. They chanted his name over and over, stamping their feet until the whole arena shook. Torvok walked to the center of the arena and looked down at Cole with contempt in his eyes. "So," the giant rumbled, "you are the insect I must squash today. This will not even be sport." Cole said nothing. He was busy watching, measuring, calculating. The horn sounded. The fight was about to begin. The horn echoed through the arena, and Torvak attacked immediately. The giant Volanthi moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. His energy blade cut through the air in a wide arc, aimed at Cole's chest. The blow would have split a normal man in half. But Cole was not there. He had started moving the moment the horn sounded, dropping low and rolling to the right. The blade passed over his head, close enough that he felt the heat on his skin. By the time Torvak completed his swing, Cole was already behind him. The crowd gasped. Nobody had ever dodged Torvak's opening strike before. The champion spun around, his 4 arms moving in a complicated pattern. He swung twice more, then thrust with the blade, then swept low toward Cole's legs. Each attack was perfectly executed, driven by centuries of training and natural strength that humans could never match. Cole dodged them all. He moved like water, flowing around the attacks without seeming to try. His footwork was strange and unpredictable, never following a pattern that Torvok could anticipate. He ducked under high strikes, jumped over low ones, and twisted sideways to avoid thrusts that should have been impossible to see coming. The crowd fell silent. Something was wrong. The human should be dead by now. In her royal box high above the arena, Princess Alindra leaned forward in her seat. Her silver eyes were fixed on the small human, watching every movement he made. She had seen thousands of arena fights in her lifetime, but she had never seen anything like this. "What is he doing?" she murmured to herself. The answer was simple, but she did not understand it yet. Cole was not trying to win. He was not even trying to survive. He was studying. Every time Torvok attacked, Cole learned something new. He learned the patterns of those 4 arms, the way the champion shifted his weight before each strike. He learned that Volanthi joints bent the same way human joints did. He learned that the big warrior favored his upper right arm for power attacks and his lower left arm for quick jabs. Most importantly, he learned that Torvok had a weakness. The champion was used to winning quickly. He was used to enemies who stood their ground and tried to block, or who panicked and made mistakes. He had no experience fighting someone who simply refused to be there when the blows landed, and it was making him angry. "Stand still, vermin," Torvak roared after 3 full minutes of missing every attack. His breathing was getting heavier now. His movements were getting wider and sloppier. "Fight me properly." He just kept moving, kept watching, kept waiting. The crowd was getting restless. They had come to see blood, and so far there had been none. Some of them started booing. Others shouted insults at the human. A few even threw things into the arena. Princess Alindra ignored all of it. She could not take her eyes off Cole. There was something in the way he moved, something patient and calculating. He was not running away. He was hunting. The realization sent a chill down her spine. Finally, Cole saw his opportunity. Torvak launched his biggest attack yet, bringing all 4 arms together for a devastating overhead strike. It was the kind of blow that could crack stone, the kind of move that had ended dozens of arena battles in a single moment. But it left his lower body unprotected for exactly half a second. Cole dove forward instead of backward. He slid across the sandy floor, passing between Torvak's legs like a shadow. As he went, his knife flashed once. The blade cut through the thick tendon behind Torvak's right knee. The champion screamed. It was a sound of pure shock and agony, unlike anything the crowd had ever heard from their undefeated hero. He stumbled, his right leg suddenly unable to support his weight. Blood poured from the wound, staining the sand dark. The arena went completely silent. Cole rolled to his feet behind the wounded giant. He was not even breathing hard. "You should have practiced fighting someone your own size," he said calmly. "Then you might have learned how to protect your legs." Torvak spun around, rage burning in his eyes. He swung wildly with his blade, but his balance was gone. The attacks were slow and clumsy compared to before. Cole dodged them easily, waiting for the next opening. It came seconds later. When Torvak shifted his weight to his damaged leg, Cole moved in close. His knife struck 3 times in rapid succession, cutting the tendons in Torvak's left wrist and both his lower elbows. The energy blade fell from fingers that could no longer grip it. Torvak's lower arms hung uselessly at his sides. The giant Volanthe stared at his crippled limbs with disbelief. This could not be happening. He was the champion. He was undefeated. He had killed hundreds of enemies in this arena. And now he was being taken apart by a creature half his size. "Yield," Cole said. His voice was quiet, but everyone in the arena heard it. "You've lost. There's no need to die." For a moment, something like gratitude flickered in Torvak's eyes. Then it was replaced by fury. "I am Volanthe," he snarled. "I do not surrender to insects." He charged at Cole with his 2 remaining functional arms, abandoning all technique in favor of raw desperation. He just wanted to grab the human, to crush him, to prove that strength still meant something. Cole stepped aside, like a dancer avoiding a clumsy partner. As Torvak stumbled past him, Cole drove his knife into the base of the champion's skull. Torvak fell forward and did not move again. The silence in the arena was absolute. Thousands of Volanthe sat frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Their greatest champion, their undefeated hero, lay dead in the sand at the feet of a creature they had dismissed as prey. Cole cleaned his knife on Torvak's clothing and slid it back into its sheath. Then he looked up at the royal box, where Princess Alindra sat. "I believe," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the entire arena, "that you owe my people a princess." Alindra sat perfectly still. Her face showed no emotion, but inside, her mind was racing. She had made this challenge, expecting entertainment. She had expected to watch a human die screaming while her people cheered. Instead, she had witnessed something impossible. A creature with no claws, No natural weapons, no armor, and no special abilities had defeated the most dangerous warrior in the Volanthi Empire. And he had done it by thinking. Slowly the princess rose from her seat. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she walked to the edge of the royal box and looked down at the small human standing in the sand. "You have won," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something new in her eyes. Respect, maybe, or fear, or both. "By the ancient laws of my people, I am now your prisoner." Cole nodded. "I'll try to make it comfortable for you." Despite everything, Alindra felt the corner of her mouth twitch. Was that humor in a moment like this? Humans, she thought, were even stranger than the stories said. She turned to her guards and gave the order. "Prepare a shuttle. I am going with the human." As she walked through the arena to join her captor, the crowd finally found its voice. But they did not cheer or boo. They simply watched in silence as their princess left with the impossible human. Nobody laughed at Cole Bennett anymore. Nobody would ever laugh at humans again. The Starward Bound had never carried royalty before. The crew did not know what to do with a prisoner who was also a princess, who was also technically property under the terms of her own challenge. Commander Jake Morrison solved the problem by giving Alindra the best guest quarters on the ship. It was still a small room by Volanthi standards, barely big enough for her to stretch her arms, but it was clean and private. He also assigned Cole to be her official guard, since he was the one who had technically won her. Cole was not sure how he felt about that arrangement. "You do not need to stand at my door all day," Alindra told him on the first morning. "I gave my word that I would remain your prisoner. Volanthi do not break their oaths." Cole shrugged. "I'm not worried about you escaping. I just thought you might want company. Being a prisoner in a strange place is probably lonely." The princess stared at him for a long moment. In 300 years of life, no one had ever expressed concern for her feelings. She was royalty. People obeyed her, feared her, or tried to use her. They did not worry about whether she was lonely. "You are a strange creature," she said finally. "I've heard that before." Over the following days, something unexpected began to happen. Cole stopped being just a guard and started being something closer to a guide. He showed Alindra around the ship, explaining how humans lived and worked together. He introduced her to the crew members, who were terrified of her at first, but gradually became curious. He even taught her to play cards. "This game makes no sense," Alindra complained after losing her fifth hand of poker. "The rules change depending on what cards you hold." "That's the point," Cole said, dealing another round. "You have to adapt to whatever situation you find yourself in. You have to read other people and figure out what they're hiding." The princess picked up her new cards and studied them with intense concentration. "This is how humans think, isn't it? Everything is flexible. Everything changes based on circumstances." "Pretty much. We don't have the strength or speed to just overpower our problems, so we learn to outthink them instead." Alindra looked at him over her cards. "Is that how you defeated Torvak? You outthought him?" Cole nodded slowly. "Torvak was stronger than me in every physical way, but he only knew one way to fight. When that way stopped working, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't adapt. And you could. And I could." The princess was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then she laid down her cards with a small smile. "Full house," she said. "I believe I win this round." Cole looked at her cards, then at his own, then back at her. "You're learning fast. I am Volanthi. We are excellent students when we choose to be." As the days turned into weeks, Alindra began to understand things about humanity that no Volanthi had ever grasped before. She watched the crew solve problems through cooperation rather than command. She saw engineers argue about the best way to fix a broken system, with the final decision based on whose idea worked rather than whose rank was highest. She observed the way humans treated each other, with casual kindness that seemed to require no effort. They shared food without being asked. They helped struggling crewmates without expecting repayment. They laughed together over small things, finding joy in moments that Valanthe would consider beneath notice. "Your people are inefficient," she told Cole one evening as they sat in the observation deck, watching the stars drift by. A Valanthe commander would simply order the repairs done in a specific way. There would be no debate. "Maybe," Cole agreed, "but what happens when the commander is wrong? What if there's a better solution that someone lower in rank discovered?" Elindra considered this. Then the commander would be wrong, and the inferior solution would be implemented. The commander's authority must be maintained. Even if it means worse outcomes? Yes. Cole was quiet for a moment. That sounds exhausting, having to be right all the time, with no one allowed to help you think. The princess turned to look at him. In the starlight, her silver eyes seemed softer than usual. "It is exhausting. You cannot imagine how exhausting it is." "Then why do you do it that way?" "Because we have always done it that way. Because it works. Because—" She stopped, searching for words that did not come easily. "Because we do not know how to do it differently." Cole shifted to face her more directly. "Would you like to learn?" Something passed between them in that moment. It was not quite friendship, and not quite something more. It was simply recognition. One lonely soul acknowledging another. "Perhaps," Elindra said quietly, "if I had a patient teacher." The weeks continued to pass. The Starward Bound moved slowly through space, carrying its unusual passenger toward Earth, where diplomats were scrambling to figure out what to do with her. Meanwhile, the blockade around the human colonies had been lifted as promised. Valanthe ships were actually helping human cargo vessels pass safely through their territory. The princess's capture was changing things, in ways nobody had predicted. One night, Cole found Elindra standing alone in the cargo bay, looking at a crate of equipment that had broken loose during a minor turbulence event. She was trying to push it back into place, but it was too heavy even for her 4 arms. "Here," he said, walking over. "Let me help." Together they managed to move the crate. Elindra straightened up, breathing hard, and looked at him with surprise. "You are strong for your size," she said. Cole laughed. "Not really. But 2 people working together can move things that 1 person can't." The princess was quiet, considering his words. Then she said something that surprised both of them. "I do not want to go to Earth." Cole frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that when we arrive at your homeworld, your leaders will treat me as a political tool. They will use me to negotiate with my father, to extract concessions, to humiliate the Empire." Her silver eyes met his. "I understand this. It is what I would do in their position. But I do not want it." "What do you want?" Elindra looked out at the stars through the small cargo bay window. "I want to understand your people. I want to learn how you think, how you adapt, how you turn weaknesses into strengths. I want to take that knowledge back to my own people and change them." She paused. "I want what happened in that arena to mean something more than just one fight." Cole stepped closer to her. "That's a big goal." "Yes, it is." She turned to face him fully. "And I believe I will need help to achieve it. From someone who understands both what humans are and what Valanthe could become." The space between them seemed smaller suddenly. The cargo bay was quiet except for the hum of the ship's engines. "Are you asking me to help you change the galaxy?" Cole asked. The princess smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, it reached her eyes. "I am asking you to try. It is what humans do, is it not? Look at impossible things and find ways to make them possible." Cole thought about the arena, about the giant champion lying dead in the sand, about the thousands of Valanthe who had watched their world change in a single moment. "Yes," he said quietly. "That is what we do." He held out his hand. After a moment of hesitation, Alindra took it in one of hers. Her skin was cool and smooth, and her grip was stronger than a human's. "Then we have an agreement," she said. And somewhere in the stars, the future began to shift. The diplomatic conference on Earth Station 1 was the most important political event in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered, along with ambassadors from the 3 human colony worlds. On the other side of the table sat the Volanthi delegation, led by Imperial Ambassador Korthax, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else in the universe. At the center of it all stood Princess Alindra and Cole Bennett, side by side. "This is outrageous," Ambassador Korthax growled, his forearms crossed tightly over his chest. "The princess is a member of the royal family. She cannot simply remain here as a human possession." "I am not a possession," Alindra said calmly. "I am a diplomatic hostage, bound by the terms of my own challenge. Those terms were witnessed by thousands and broadcast across the Empire. Would you have me break ancient law in front of the entire galaxy?" Korthax sputtered, but could not find a response. The princess had him trapped, and everyone in the room knew it. Earth's lead diplomat, a calm woman named Sandra Cole, no relation to Cole Bennett despite the shared name, leaned forward in her chair. "Perhaps we should focus on what comes next, rather than what has already happened. Princess Alindra has made an interesting proposal." She gestured to the large display screen behind her. It showed a detailed plan for the first-ever alliance between humans and the Volanthi Empire. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, shared scientific research, and most importantly, joint military patrols to protect both territories from outside threats. "This is what I offer," Alindra said, stepping forward to address both sides. "Not a surrender, not a humiliation, an alliance between equals." "Equals?" Korthax laughed bitterly. "Humans are barely out of their caves. They have no technology, no military strength, no—" "They have Cole Bennett," Alindra interrupted. "A human who defeated the greatest champion in our history with nothing but a knife and his mind. They have ships that fly on improvised repairs and determination. They have the ability to adapt to any situation, to find solutions that we would never imagine." She looked directly at the ambassador. "Tell me, Korthax, what would happen if my father tried to conquer Earth?" The ambassador opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had seen the recordings of the arena fight. He had read the reports about human persistence, human creativity, human stubbornness. He knew, as all Volanthi military leaders now knew, that conquering humanity would not be the easy victory they had always assumed. It would be long, it would be bloody, and it might not end in Volanthi victory at all. "The princess makes a fair point," he admitted reluctantly. "Perhaps an alliance would be beneficial for both sides." The negotiations took 3 more months. There were arguments about territory, about trade rights, about which species would provide what resources. There were threats and counter-threats, walkouts and dramatic returns. It was messy and frustrating and exhausting. But in the end, the Treaty of First Contact was signed. The ceremony was broadcast to every human colony and every Volanthi world. Billions of beings watched as Ambassador Korthax and diplomat Sandra Cole pressed their hands to the document, sealing the agreement. Then, Princess Alindra and Cole Bennett added their signatures as witnesses. When it was done, the room erupted in applause, not just from the humans, but from the Volanthi delegation as well. Something historic had happened. Something that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. Afterwards, there was a reception. Cole stood near the back of the room, watching politicians and diplomats congratulate each other. He had never been comfortable at parties. Alindra found him there, holding a glass of something blue that was apparently a Volanthi celebration drink. "You should be celebrating with the others," she said, moving to stand beside him. "You are the hero of this story." Cole shook his head. I'm just a guy who won a fight. The real heroes are the diplomats who turned that fight into something lasting." The princess studied him with her silver eyes. In the months they had spent together, she had learned to read human expressions. She knew he was not being modest. He genuinely did not see himself as special. That was what made him special. "I have been thinking about the future," she said quietly, "about what happens now that the treaty is signed. And my father has officially appointed me as the Imperial Ambassador to the Human Federation. It is a position of great honor. It is also a way for him to keep me away from court, where I might cause trouble with my new ideas about cooperation and equality." Cole smiled slightly. "Sounds about right. What does that mean for you?" "It means I will be spending the next several years on Earth, learning about your people, finding ways to bring our cultures closer together." She turned to face him directly. "I could use an advisor, someone who understands both what humans are and what Valanthi could become." "Are you offering me a job?" "I am offering you a partnership." Her voice was serious now. "The fight in the arena was just the beginning. The real battle is changing how our people see each other. It will take years, maybe decades. It will require patience and creativity and the ability to keep trying, even when success seems impossible." They were the same ones that had carried him through the fight with Torvak. "You know," he said slowly, "when I volunteered to fight your champion, I thought I was going to die. I made peace with it. I figured at least I'd be doing something meaningful with my life. And now? Now I think maybe dying would have been the easy part. Living to make a difference, that's harder." He looked at her and smiled. "But I never did like taking the easy road." Alindra felt something warm spread through her chest. It was a feeling she had no name for, something she had never experienced in 300 years of life. Later, she would learn that humans called it happiness. "Then we are agreed," she said, extending one of her hands. Cole took it, feeling the cool smoothness of her skin against his palm. "We are agreed." Outside the reception hall, the stars shone bright and cold. Somewhere out there, the Valanthi Empire was absorbing the news that everything was about to change. Somewhere out there, humans were realizing that they were no longer alone in the universe. And standing at the center of it all, a human soldier and an alien princess looked at each other and saw something neither had ever expected to find: a future worth fighting for. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be setbacks and failures, enemies who opposed the alliance, and friends who doubted it could work. There would be moments when both of them wanted to give up. But Cole Bennett had dragged his injured father 7 miles through a blizzard when he was 12 years old. He had defeated the greatest warrior in Valanthi history with nothing but a knife and his mind. He knew something about doing impossible things. And Ilindra Valkarath was beginning to understand that impossibility was just a word humans used for things they had not figured out yet. Together they walked out of the reception hall and into the future. The stars were waiting.